Hi, Mark. How are you doing today?
Great, Dana. How are you?
Doing all right. Thank you for asking. I'm very pleased to be here with you to discuss the state technical assessment team program. I understand that you were critical in bringing that idea to this organization and getting it started. What did that look like more than 20 years ago now?
Well, first of all, I kind of had the idea that everybody seemed to like of trying to do something like the STAT program, and it was based on my previous experiences because I started out over the state EMS program, and I was involved in some of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's EMS system reviews in a few different states around the country. And so I brought that experience with me as I became very actively involved in what was STIP to those days and now Safe States. Um, I don't really feel like I can claim personal credit for a lot of this. I borrowed a lot of good ideas from other people, but I was kind of a catalyst, I think, to get the STAT program started. And one of the things I found in my file, back when Sue Maloney was president, I think she was two terms before I was, the uh, STIPTA back then created a document called Safe States. And it was called Five Components of a Model State Injury Prevention Program and Three Phases of Program Development. I still have a copy of it. And what's interesting to me as I look through that is first of all, it was prescient with the name. And I think the name was based on the fact that there was a big movement, and that was spearheaded by NHTSA back in the 90s for safe communities. So we kind of looked at that and said, well, we need safe states. And then later on, the organization was named that, which I find fascinating. Uh, then the executive committee, when I proposed this idea that maybe it would be good to have a team of experts that can go into states and it's, as you know, it's an intense process that's condensed into a fairly short period of time. And my view is that states can benefit from these types of reviews with very little investment of resources and yet get some very, very high level um, input on what the strengths and maybe some weaknesses of their programs are. And hopefully that has, and it's really exciting for me to think that all these years later, that program continues. And so that's kind of a brief history of it, but I would be interested in hearing from you what your experiences have been more recently.
Well, Mark, I have had the great pleasure of participating on two stat visits, one for Louisiana that was held completely virtually, and the other for Oklahoma that was held in a sort of hybrid manner. And you're right, it is an intensive experience in either situation. And I think that there is opportunity now for determining how this moves forward. I was noting with Kansas being the first stat visit in 2000, I believe, that there was a formative evaluation also as part of the reporting done for that visit. And it appeared to me that there were a lot of lessons learned. And I think we are still in a process of learning. So the next step for review of STAT, which is taking place this year, is for an in-person meeting of a group of people to have some further discussions about what this looks like. Do you have any pointers for how things evolved in the beginning?
Well, I would first of all, Tricia Keller, who was president after I was a couple terms later, was the actual chair of the committee that pulled that together, and I was involved not as directly, but as a reviewer. Um, a couple of things that I've noted, and I have done reviews, as I say, I did three reviews with STIPTA, now Safe States. I did at least three or maybe more with NHTSA EMS, and I've done some reviews with College of Surgeons, and they're all fairly similar in how they approach it, how they condense the actual visits and report writing. A couple of things that I think are important, and I know with COVID, for example, we all had to do things remotely, And but I do think face-to-face meetings are important, and part of the reason for that, for me at least, is in my experience, a lot of times people who have really important things to say don't like to get up in front of a whole bunch of people and say it, you know. So that's one opportunity, is you can either have one-to-one or small group discussions, and sometimes get a lot of insight that maybe you don't get in a large public forum. But I think it's an exciting process. I really think it's very, very valuable. And I just wish you all the best and hope you continue to make it a successful program. What are some of your thoughts based on your experience?
Well, Mark, I think a couple of things to keep in mind as we work on this review, we'll be looking at the full stat and what it entails. And there will be some things that change and some things that stay the same. It's been important to have last week's announcement about diversity, equity, inclusion being included in the core components. So that will be impactful of stat visits in the future. Having the different experiences of in-person, completely virtually, and hybrid will be looked at to see where we need to go moving forward, because I think there's definitely pros and cons of each. But I think the thing that always comes back to me when it comes to stat is how important and um, satisfying the experiences as being part of a team. Not only do you have opportunity to build relationships with others across the state, but there's so much that you can take back to your own state. So
Yes,
really, it's a professional development
right.
opportunity. Do you think that that was part of the intention from the beginning?
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree with that. And another thing that has really impressed me in the different kinds of reviews that I've been involved with is how very, very high level people in state government usually pay attention to these things. I remember the first one I served on was actually Hawaii in 2003. And I remember, the commissioner, the department, the public health director, a lot of people who can make a lot of important decisions and help with budgets, et cetera, were there at the table listening. And to me, that was very exciting. And I hope that continues.
I definitely agree. I mean, quality improvement is something that we've got to consistently and constantly be looking at. And I think that these visits and the standards that are set for them are a great opportunity to do so and to give additional highlight of your program within your state and changes maybe that would help you continue your progress. I know that. One thing that has been shared as we've reviewed the stat is that sometimes the recommendations can be overwhelming. You know, that first year after a stat, you get some technical assistance, but sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, almost always in injury and
Right.
violence prevention, it takes a long time to be able to make progress. What do you think?
Totally agree.
I was looking at the recommendations for Kansas, and I can tell you that yes, some of those have been accomplished, but there are just as many that have not, maybe even more.
Right.
Do you think when this project was first started that there was um, a thought about short-term, intermediate, and long-term outcomes for states?
Yes, and I think that's also a very important focus as you look at modification or changes in the future. But absolutely, and I guarantee you, even though I actually worked in public health for 25 and a half years here, I've been pretty active as a volunteer since I retired. And it's pretty amazing how long some things take. And the only thing I try to remind myself is, hey, enjoy the wins when you get them, but sometimes you got to wait a while. But you just have to keep working on it. You won't get there unless we work at it. So, and it's exciting. I think it's great that Safe States is doing all the things that they're doing. And I just wish you all the best and hope you can continue.
Very much appreciate that. I'm looking forward to what the stat visit holds in the future.
Great. Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Yes, I hope you have a good rest of your day.